Welcome to the deep dive. Today, we're taking a closer look at two things you probably see all the time in your grocery cart.
That's right.
Rapeseed oil, often labeled as canola oil, and also those super convenient seedless fruits.
Mm-hmm. Grapes, watermelon.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So our goal here is really to understand why they're so prevalent. Like, what's driving that?
And what does it mean for, what we eat, our health?
And maybe the bigger food system picture, too. We've got a couple of interesting documents we're looking at.
Yeah, one digs into some healthier oil alternatives and really champions naturally seeded fruits.
Right. And the other gives more of an analysis of modern food processing, specifically looking at rapeseed oil and these seedless fruits.
So kind of different angles on it.
Yeah, exactly. And by the time we're done, hopefully you'll have a really solid, unbiased kind of grasp on these topics.
Empowering you to make your own informed choices. See the connections.
Right. Okay, so let's maybe kick things off with rapeseed oil.
Sounds good. It really is amazing how much we run into it.
It is, isn't it? It kind of flies under the radar.
Totally. But you start reading ingredient lists and bam, it's everywhere.
Yeah.
And the sources we looked at, they point to some pretty clear reasons why.
Economics, I bet.
Good old economics, yeah.
Yes.
Mostly. Rapeseed is just a very productive crop, high yield.
So it makes the oil cheaper to produce.
Exactly. And that focus on yield, on cost efficiency, well, it helps manufacturers, maybe saves us money short term.
Yeah.
But it does kind of subtly shift things, agriculturally.
Yeah.
Away from maybe other crops that might be more nutrient dense, perhaps.
Interesting point. Long-term nutritional diversity.
Could be an implication, yeah.
Okay, so it's cheap, and it's also just really practical for food companies, right?
Oh, absolutely. The documents highlight that too. It's got a long shelf life.
Which is huge for processed foods.
And that neutral flavor you mentioned, it just doesn't get in the way.
So you can put it in anything. Baked goods, fried stuff.
Salad dressings, helps emulsify things, mix oil and water.
Right. Plus, you can't ignore the whole plant-based angle these days. That's a big draw for people.
Definitely caters to that market. Vegan, plant-forward consumers.
And it seems like there's been quite a bit of industry and government backing, too. Subsidies and things.
Yeah, in places like Canada, the U.S., that support really cements its economic edge.
Makes it even more attractive financially for producers.
It creates this whole system favoring it. But this is where it gets a little tricky for shoppers, isn't it?
A labeling.
Yeah, what you see on the bottle isn't always straightforward.
You're right, like canola oil. That's a key one.
Mm-hmm.
Our sources really clarify this. In many places, canola, and this is important, usually means a specific type of rapeseed.
Bread specifically.
Bread, yeah, often using genetic modification to be really low in something called erucic acid.
Which was the big concern historically, yeah, with the older rapeseed varieties.
Right. The analysis document mentioned those older concerns were linked to high erucic acid levels.
And modern canola, being low erucic, is generally seen as safe to consume.
Okay. But then in Europe, it might be different. Rapeseed oil there could mean something else.
It can, yeah. It might mean a non-GMO version, especially if it says it's cold-pressed.
So you really need to be aware of these regional differences.
Definitely pays to know what the labels might mean where you are.
Okay, so health-wise, it's not all bad news, is it? The sources do point out some potential upsides.
No, there are some positives highlighted. It's low in saturated fat.
Which is generally seen as good for heart health.
Right. And it's high in monounsaturated fat.
Putting it more in line with, say, olive oil in that respect.
Somewhat, yeah. Plus, it does have that plant-based omega-3,
Right.
ALA.
And some vitamin E and K as well.
Those are definitely the plus points on the nutritional side.
There's always a but, isn't there?
Well, the way most of it is processed is worth looking at.
The refining process.
Yeah, the analysis source goes into this. Refined oils often mean high heat.
Okay.
And chemical solvents like hexane are often used to get the oil out.
Hexane. What's that exactly?
It's a solvent. Comes from petroleum. Pretty common in oil extraction.
Right. And while there are rules about residues left over,
some people just prefer to avoid potential exposure, They lean towards oils extracted mechanically, cold-pressed.
because that high heat refining process can also damage some nutrients.
It can potentially strip away some of the good stuff, yeah. And then there's hydrogenation.
Trans fats.
Exactly. Less common now, thankfully, but hydrogenation can create those unhealthy trans fats we're all told to limit.
And the source focused on healthy oils really hammers this point home, doesn't it?
It does, recommending cold-pressed, unrefined oils to dodge that heavy processing.
Keep more nutrients intact.
Right. And they also flag being cautious about those generic vegetable oil blends.
Often high in omega-6s.
Yeah, and also refined sunflower or safflower oils, which can go through similar processing.
So even if rapeseed oil has some good fats, the processing method really matters.
This introduces other factors to think about, absolutely.
Which brings us to that omega-6, omega-3 balance issue.
Right. The modern food processing analysis touches on that. Our diets tend to be heavy on omega-6s, often from processed foods.
And while canola has some omega-3,
It might not be enough to really balance out a high omega-6 intake for everyone, which, could potentially contribute to inflammation over time. That's the concern raised.
okay, so with rapeseed canola, it's kind of a mixed bag. Big economic and practical pluses driving its use,
Some nutritional benefits.
but also real considerations around processing and maybe that omega balance.
That sums it up pretty well.
Okay, let's switch gears then. Seedless fruits.
Right. The seedless revolution.
Huh. It does feel like that sometimes. It's amazing how many common fruits, grapes, watermelons, like you said, oranges.
Bananas?
Yeah, they're almost always seedless now when you buy them. It's just normal, expected.
It really is. And the processing analysis source points out, yeah, it's largely driven by consumer preference, convenience,
Makes sense. People don't want to pick out seeds.
and it helps market the fruit, makes it easier to sell. But that other source, the one asking why grow seeded fruit,
Ah, the counterpoint.
exactly. It makes a really strong case for what we might be, losing.
Like genetic diversity. That feels important.
Crucial. Seeds are how plants reproduce naturally, adapt, evolve, deal with new pests or diseases.
Fewer varieties makes the whole system more vulnerable.
Potentially, yes. And it also points out that the seeds themselves, they often pack a nutritional punch.
Really? Like what?
Oils, like grapeseed oil we mentioned, but also beneficial compounds, polyphenols, minerals, stuff we just miss out on in seedless versions.
I never really thought about the nutrition in the seeds themselves.
And then there's the whole self-reliance angle. Saving seeds.
Right. Being able to replant your own food.
It fosters that direct connection,
Yeah.
reduces dependence on buying seeds or seedlings every year.
And the advice they give for saving seeds, drying, labeling.
Airtight containers, cool, dark place.
It feels almost like a lost art in a way.
In a world of convenient seedless produce, maybe it is becoming one.
So how do they actually make fruits seedless? It's not magic.
No, not magic. The modern food processing source lays out a few main ways. Breeding is one.
Like hybridization.
Yeah, they can create sterile plants, often called triploids, which have an odd number of chromosomes. They can't make viable seeds.
How do they get triploids?
Usually crossing a normal plant, a diploid, with one that's had its chromosomes doubled, a tetraploid. The offspring gets 3 sets, which usually messes up seed formation.
Okay. What else? Hormones?
Yep. Hormone treatments can sometimes trigger the fruit to develop even without fertilization happening. No fertilization, no seeds.
Clever. And genetic modification.
That's used in some cases too, yeah. Directly targeting the genes involved in seed development to switch them off.
Okay, so breeding, hormones, or GM.
Those are the main methods described.
And in fruits that do have seeds, what usually happens to them?
Well, like we said, sometimes they're valuable. Grapeseed oil is a perfect example.
Right.
Other times they might just be waste in processing. Or used for breeding new plants, obviously. Or maybe animal feed.
But in the seedless ones, the seeds just stop growing or never start.
Pretty much. They either don't develop properly or their development gets actively shut down by one of these techniques.
Okay, let's pull back then. Look at the bigger picture here.
The why behind it all.
Yeah. What's the main purpose driving this dominance of seedless fruit and rapeseed oil? And what are the broader consequences?
Well, the purpose section in that processing analysis really nails it, I think.
What does it say?
Fundamentally, it's about making the product more appealing, more convenient,
Easier to eat, less prep.
longer shelf life, too, and consistency. Same taste, same size. That's gold for retail.
Standardization makes total sense from a business perspective.
Absolutely. But then you look at the ramifications section.
And it gets more complicated.
Exactly. Our sources flag those potential nutritional trade-offs with seedless fruits losing the benefits from the seeds.
We talked about that. And the biodiversity concern, that feels big.
It is. Relying on just a few varieties makes our food supply way more fragile, vulnerable to disease, climate shifts.
Right, and what about the farmers?
That's another key point, raised farmer dependency. If you're growing seedless fruit, you often can't save seed to replant,
So you have to buy new plants or stock every time.
which means less autonomy, less control. less seed sovereignty, as it's sometimes called.
And this ties into the bigger companies.
It seems to. When you combine that dependency with the fact that major agribusinesses have such a strong foothold in both rapeseed canola and seedless fruit breeding and production.
You see a pattern.
Yeah, a pattern of increasing corporate influence over the whole food chain.
Wow. Okay, so wrapping this all up, it really seems like these trends, all this rapeseed oil, all these seedless fruits, they're not isolated things
No, they're deeply connected to how our modern food system works.
driven by, economics, efficiency,
The convenience for us as consumers.
and the needs of large-scale processing and retail.
But as we've kind of unpacked here, these choices, they come with potential downsides.
Trade-offs. Regarding nutrition, the diversity of what we grow and eat,
And ultimately, maybe, who controls our food?
it really makes you think, doesn't it?
Yeah.
About your own habits.
Definitely. How often are you grabbing products with rapeseed oil without maybe realizing it?
Or automatically reaching for the seedless grapes.
Just becoming more aware of where food comes from, how it's made, that feels like a really important first step.
Thinking about those trade-offs, we accept for convenience and uniformity.
Yeah.
So maybe here's a final thought to leave you with. Thinking long-term, if we keep prioritizing this kind of convenience and uniformity,
Are we maybe overlooking some real nutritional value?
and are we potentially weakening the very genetic diversity that makes our food supply resilient?
And I guess, what small things could any of us do? What individual steps might help navigate this? Maybe support a bit more diversity, a more resilient food future.
Something to think about. Thanks for taking this deep dive with us today.